It's so much fun to go live. I think that these things are so important because although I love my 12 to 15-minute videos where you can get a lot in one video, I do love to sit down and get all this information in. I think it's super important for you guys to learn too, because there's a lot of different little tips and techniques about my products, or reasons why I made something, or reasons why something works. And that's where these are really important, because I can sit down and really thoroughly explain all of it, which is super important. Education is everything for me when it comes to my products. And then, of course, you guys can take those techniques and run with them and create some amazing projects. So let's turn on my work surface and let's get right into it. All right, so here is the Easter release. I wanted to start off by just giving kind of a look at what was released last year. It was such a fun release and I really do love it. The only reason we didn't have an Easter release this year is just because of time reasons. We didn't really have enough, but I think next year we'll definitely make some more Easter supplies. This background stamp is called Lovely Lilies. Of course, these are all still on the Ranger site. And this one is a beautiful peel apart background stamp. You'll probably see me use it today and you'll see some examples with it. One thing I love about it is you can use these florals separately, or you can use the center along with it and get that really fun dot pattern in there too. But I like that you can use either one of these separately for either side of the card, or you can make kind of a gatefold card. Super fun. We have these eggs, which you'll definitely be seeing in today's live. I love these guys because they're super nice and solid. They give a really beautiful image as well. And there is some different stencils. We released this stencil called Flower Power. I absolutely love it. And then 2 different stamp sets. I know a lot of people loved this one. I think I'll have to use it again in a video pretty soon, but it's this beautiful cross with some floral images and lots of great Easter sentiments that go along with it. I really love this one and how it came out. And then of course this one's more playful Easter. So really there is something to kind of fit everyone's vibe, and I really like to do that just so that everyone has something to choose from and really decide what they love, because I know we all do have our own different style. So it's really important for me, and you'll see in the future especially too, that we really created some things in different styles so that everybody can have something to choose from. You know, whatever they celebrate or whatever style they want to work with, they totally can. So I wanted to share some of these Easter things. You'll see them kind of pop up in today's live. But like I said, use what you have on hand. And of course, I'll be sharing kind of some supplies, but you can really take a lot of these techniques and run with them using some supplies you have in your craft room. Hey, scrapwood.com. That's awesome that you guys are here. All right, so let's start off by talking about the stamping foam. Now, this is the newest stamping foam. Stamping foam has kind of had a little bit of an evolution over the past year, which has been so exciting. You guys absolutely loved the first size, which was a little bit smaller. In fact, I'll grab one here. So this one I've already used. I got a whole drawer next to me of designs that I've just kind of kept in there. So you can see this one, the newer one, is quite a bit larger. You guys have been asking for this larger size since the first one came out, because it'll fit on an A2 size card and cover the whole background, which I think is really a big game changer. And it also is just a phenomenal way to create a whole background. And you'll see today, it really does transform a background stamp, which is so incredibly exciting. So this one is not gonna go. I love this one because you get that nice border around it. I think keeping that white space and keeping that nice frame has been really super awesome. And there's products to fit on these, as you guys have probably seen those. But this new stamping foam is really exciting because it's that larger size, so you can get a full background in. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some different techniques. These happen to come in a pack of 2 of the stamping foams, and they are just a really great product. So we're going to walk through this today. I haven't talked too much about it since the release, but I wanted to walk you guys through why this is just so important. So let's start off by just talking about background stamps. I think this is also a great topic to get into because it really relates to the stamping foam in the fact that I love the stamping foam for using with stamps. And this is going to be my first technique that I share. I know that a lot of people love the stamping foam because it's kind of a novelty item and you can really make some incredible stamps with whatever textures are around your house, which is super cool. And I love that you're able to do that and not have to spend so much money on different textures. But the reason why it's so cool for background stamps is because each background stamp is designed to, well, just stamp exactly what the design is, right? So these are background stamps from my line. Stampers Anonymous manufactures them for me and Ranger, and they print on the back. They do a great job at making super high quality red rubber background stamps. But of course, this wood grain is going to stamp exactly like you see it. It's going to stamp this thin line black design. You can stamp it in whatever color you want, but what you see is kind of what you get with these background stamps, right? So even when I showed you that lovely lilies, you're getting the outline. So you're going to have to color this in somehow. And you know, whether or not you're loving coloring at the moment, it just really depends on what you want to create with. This is one of the newer background stamps, and it's got this super beautiful fine line image. It's called Folk Art Florals. And then you get into some of the images in my line, which are thicker and more bold. You can see the egg hunt image is a super bold image. You're not getting any fine lines on here. And then you can see this one, which is called Flower Garden. I believe this one's retired. You're going to kind of see some things kind of retire over time, but I love this stamp, and I love how bold of an image it has. So here's the cool thing about stamping foam, and I've demonstrated this several times using the smaller stamping foam, but I think people don't really get it because they're always like, well, why would I make a stamp of a stamp, right? Because essentially with the stamping foam, you're taking a piece of stamping foam and you're impressing it in and you're creating a different stamp. And I always explain, you know, the importance of it is because it creates a reverse image, but not everyone understands that. So today I'm going to walk you guys through really exactly the effects you're going to get with different background stamps and everything like that. Someone says the wood grain is my fave. That's so exciting. This was from one of my first releases. So if you guys don't know about this one, it's a really fun background stamp. But like I said, like when I'm designing a background stamp, I'm the one who gets to choose. So if I want it to be a super bold image, that's how it's going to come out. And so any stamp designer has that option, but you as the customer don't get that option, which I think is a little bit important. So the stamping foam gives you that option back, right? So with this wood grain stamp, you're going to get a wood grain that looks something like this. Now, I designed this stamp to kind of stamp onto a piece of craft cardstock, and you'll get this kind of effect, right? Where I stamped down my ink. It's kind of a tone-on-tone effect, which is beautiful. But if you stamp this onto a white piece of cardstock, you're just going to get a super stark white background with just those little wood grain details. I love how this one looks, though. But what if I want to get a wood grain that is more solid and has the white areas as the wood grain background? And that's what I'm going to show you guys here to get this beautiful effect instead of this, right? So let's go in and share how to do this with the stamping foam, because like I said, when you see it on a full background, you're like, oh, now I get that, right? Now this makes sense to have this large stamping foam, because you can totally make a stamp out of a stamp and you're going to get a completely different look than what the stamp was actually supposed to do. So let's go in here and share this really quickly. So with the stamping foam, I always say it's super important to have your texture ready, whatever that may be, whether it's a stamp, a die, an embossing folder, a stencil, or anything around your house. You guys have probably seen some videos in the past, but if not, there are tons of stamping foam videos sharing a bunch of other different textures as well. Now, I also always share that you can tape your stamping foam to an acrylic block. We've recently, in the past, released these Simon Hurley Create acrylic blocks. I love them, and they really fit the smaller size of the stamping foam nicely. Now, people have been asking me what this larger acrylic block is, and you might see this in the future, but you can kind of find a piece that will fit your stamping foam, but I'm going to share without it today, just because not everybody has this big piece of acrylic that they can use with it. So I'm going to be totally honest here. I always stand up whenever I'm using this larger stamping foam, and it's because it's a lot larger of a surface area, so you do have to give it a little bit more pressure as well. So let me go in here, and I'm going to heat this up using the Ranger heat tool. Now you could use any sort of heat tool for this. Now the reason why I like this one is just because it has kind of a less condensed heat. It's not gonna go right into one area. It's gonna kind of spread out a little bit more. It gets just as hot, but it spreads the heat. So it's not condensed into one area, so it'll kind of keep it more evenly heated. It's just my opinion, but you could totally use just a normal heat tool as well, and that will suffice. Now, the other stamping foam, you're supposed to heat it for 10 to 15 seconds. With this one, you might need to heat it for 20 to 25 seconds, around there, but keep your heat tool moving across the whole thing. You want to keep that heat evenly moving so that it doesn't overheat or burn any one area of the stamping foam. All right, and I like this one because it's quiet too, honestly. It's nice and quiet. All right, so I'm going to take this then, and without hesitating, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to press all over this background stamp. Give it some good impression, and not sitting in one area, just going like this, right? We're moving all the way around, making sure we get those corners without moving the stamping foam. And you're going to get an impression that looks like this, all right? And now it's time to debunk some stamping foam myths, because this is why these lives are so important, right? Because you might have this at home and you might be like, well, that's not really what I wanted. And of course, by all means, you can go in and reheat this over and over and over, and you can keep reusing the stamping foam. I think that's what's the coolest thing about it, is that you're totally able to reuse and recreate with the stamping foam just by reheating it. And I'll show you that in a little bit. But this doesn't need to be reheated. All right, this is not a super thick impression. You can see it made a little bit of an impression there, but it's not super thick. You can't really see it too much, but this is what we want. And I think the larger stamping foam is a little bit harder to heat up and harder to get like a super deep impression. And honestly, I think it's going to teach people that you really don't need that super deep impression. I've had a couple people kind of sit at classes and struggle to get a perfect impression. And I think sometimes it's because they're pressing in too deep, and then you're losing some of those details. Because if a detail is like super deep into your stamping foam, but then the normal like stamp area is all the way up here, and you're pressing down into there, you're missing out on those details that are super indented, right? But if you just do it like this, you're gonna get all this area to stamp. I think that's super important. I mean, if it's like flat, you might wanna reheat it, but let me show you here. So you're gonna see now, when I take out my ink, I'm using a little bit of Gur. I'm gonna go in here and just lightly rub this over the top. Now, stamping foam is all about pressure, and you're gonna wanna get used to the pressures that you apply to the stamping foam. Because I could go in here and I could apply tons of pressure with my ink pad, and that's gonna get into those little grooves, and you might not get the image that you want then, right? But that could be something that you want, and we'll share that in just a second. But if I just go in here with kind of a light pressure and go over top of my ink pad, you're gonna get the image inked up, and you're gonna get all those kind of little indents. No matter how small those indents are, they're still gonna show up, which I think is the coolest part about this. And you're going to get those to be white, or the negative. And look how cool that is, right? It just totally reverses the look of this stamp. Because at first this stamp was a kind of hand-drawn, small wood grain look with a little bit of texture in there. And now it's this kind of wood black with just some little wood grains going through it, which is so, so cool. So when you're inking this up, you're going to want to go in a circular motion. I find that that's the best way to apply the ink and get the most even color across. And we'll talk a little bit more about applying the ink in just a second when I do the next example as well. But then let's flip it down to the overhead now. You can go in and spray this down. So I've shared a sprayer that gives a really even spray. I don't have it on my desk right now, but otherwise I would use it. You're going to want to hold it from a little bit of a distance and spray with your sprayer. Now, mist it 3 to 4 times. You can see that I did that from a distance, and you can see that I followed through with my mist. All right, we don't want any globs on the surface. We just want the water to kind of reactivate that. But you can see when I lift it up to the camera, you're not getting like tons of little droplets. You're just getting this tiny little mist. And that's what we want, just to kind of reactivate and darken that ink a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna go in with my stark white cardstock now, and let me show you exactly how this is gonna stamp. So when I'm using this stamping foam, there was some questions on how to line it up. Now, this stamping foam is a little bit bigger than an A2 size card, so I just line it up kind of at the bottom, and then I just follow through, drop it down, and we can go in and stamp then. All right. So Judy said she can never do the mirror stamping, and now she can do it with the stamping foam. I agree. It really is just the coolest thing, and I think I'll share that in today's video now that you talk about that. That is a great technique. So when we lift this off, you can see that beautiful background there. And now, of course, I might not have pressed down enough to get enough of the image to transfer there, but you guys can see exactly the result that we wanted. It gives you the reverse image in whatever stamp you use, which is so, so important. So I think hopefully you guys will understand this now. I get a lot of questions still about it, like, why are you reversing the stamp? This is exactly why. You want an image that's going to give you the exact reverse of whatever your background stamp was, so that you as the customer then can double your whole stash, because now you're getting a completely different effect and different result from what you're stamping with, which I think is super incredibly cool. So now let's talk about, if you guys have never used stamping foam, how to clean it off. So I just go in with water. If I'm using my ink pads, they clean off incredibly easy with water, right? They're not going to stain anything, and they come off super easy, super clear, and that's that, right? That's what one thing I love about my inks is just because they're so easy to clean. So if you are one of those people who needs your stamps to be perfectly clean, and maybe this is the ink pad for you, right? Because it does a lot of amazing techniques, but that is one of the benefits, is you're gonna have a really nice clean stamp afterwards. All right, but if you're using an ink that's going to stain, right? I know some of inks that are going to stain on the surface. That's just the nature of some of these inks. That's totally fine. We get lots of emails being like, hey, you know, my stamping foam is stained. What should I do with it? Well, you could try using stamp cleaner. You could try using rubbing alcohol, and some of that will take off some of the staining. So if that helps, definitely try using a cleaner. I don't think many things are going to ruin this. Maybe just don't use acetone. But you could definitely try using stamp cleaners on here, and I think that is a great way to do it. But if anything stains this, it's not gonna really matter. As long as it like stains and it's not coming off of the ink, like you can clean it off, but sometimes it'll stain a little bit, that's totally fine, right? Maybe keep one for your stained inks and one for your clean inks. There's not too much I can recommend about staining, but that's one of the things I recommend. So I'm gonna go in here now and heat this up with my heat tool again. And if you guys haven't seen the magic of stamping foam, it really is a super cool product, because I'm going in here and just heating this up just for about as long as I did at the beginning, and it's going to reverse back to the original shape of the stamping foam, right? It's going to flatten out completely and give me a flat stamp now to work with. So now I can start over, and I can keep reusing this foam over and over and over as many times as I want to. And you're gonna see a little bit of that image. The reason why you see that is honestly a little bit of the ink, right? Because it's gonna sink in a little bit. Let's see if we can clean that off. We're gonna need to wait for it to dry off. Yeah, it comes off more than I actually did it. So you can see there, once you actually get that super clean, you're gonna see that the image disappears. It wasn't as much of a transformation because I left some of that ink on there, but you can see that it goes back to a completely flat surface. And now you are able to go back in, and you're able to use this with any other stamped image, right? Which I think is so, so cool. So let me go in now and just share how to use a solid image, because this is going to give you a completely different look. This is going to give you something totally unique from what a fine line image is going to give you. Because a fine line image is going to give you this look, right? It's going to give you a solid spot of where the rest is. But when I go in with such a solid stamp like this one, those areas that are down into here, like I said, they're not super deep, and they're never really going to be super deep. When you use the smaller stamping foam, you're able to get a little bit of a deeper impression, but I like that this doesn't go super deep, and I'll show you why right now. Because, of course, this is going to stamp that image, so you're going to get exactly what this looks like on the stamp. But when you stamp it into your stamping foam, you're going to get something completely different. So let me go in here and ink this up. And I told you guys we were going to talk a little bit more about inks. And a lot of people have been asking me about what kind of colors that I use as well. Let's talk about color a little bit. I used to be one who was like, I'm never teaching color theory. I'm not great at color theory, so I can't teach it. And that is what I would go around saying. In fact, in my classes, I would be like, well, you know, use whatever colors you want to use, and don't worry about it, right? If it turns out muddy, then try something else. And that is totally something that I live by. But some people have still been asking me. And so let me talk about some of my favorite color themes to use. I love colors that will give me a wide array of a spectrum, but it's going to still follow the color wheel, right? And I'll make a video on this talking about this whole thing as well, because I think it's so important. Even though I was talking about how I was never going to use the color wheel, I was using it in my head, but I just wasn't teaching anyone it because it kind of confused me, right? But I'm going to pull in a color wheel in a future video. But the thing about this is, right, in the color wheel, you're going to have reds and oranges and yellows. So that's all following. And right before red is going to be purple, because that's the end of it, right? So it restarts over at red. And so I'm just using colors that are next to each other in the color wheel. And even though it's a wide spectrum of colors, right? Because you could totally just take out these three and be like, well, these three are going to work because they're warms. No, you can keep going around the color wheel with a rainbow as far as you want, right? So this is just essentially the order of a rainbow, and I'm just picking and choosing what specific colors and shades that I want to use, and it's going to give you a really great effect, right? So I'm going to go in here with Love Struck next, and I'm going to blend this in. Now, when I'm blending it in, I'm using the edge of my ink pad. I kind of lift it up so that just that edge is touching, and I'm, again, lightly going in here. Now, even when I'm lightly applying this ink, you're going to get ink down into those areas where you pressed into that stamp, right? And that's the nature of this, because you've got such deep, or like such wide areas, that it's going to go into there. There's no way to stop it, right? I mean, I guess you could like really lightly touch that. And I mean, I guess like it's gonna not get into those areas. Yeah, you could kind of do it like that, right? But with the pressure that I'm adding to add this ink down, I'm totally adding enough pressure to go into those areas. But like I said, stamping foam, and whenever somebody struggles with it, which there isn't many people who do, but sometimes in classes I'll have some people who are just not getting the hang of it, it totally is a game of pressure, right? You're gonna get different results with the different amounts of pressure that you apply. So try new things, test out whether or not you hold your ink pad with lots of pressure or whether you're really lightly doing it. And you're gonna get different effects every time, which is super, super cool. All right. So let me now go in with a little bit of Slippery When Wet. Love that color. Beautiful. And then I'm gonna last but not least go in with a little bit of Shooting Star. Oh, that is so awesome. Okay, Tracy in the comments just said a brayer. Yeah, and that's gonna give you the look that you want, I think. If you go in with a brayer, you're just gonna hit those high points. So totally, like I said, it's a game of pressure. And different tools are going to give you different pressures and different ways to apply it, right? Because that brayer is a little bit of a harder material, it's just going to kind of skip over top of the surface. Now, with a brayer, are you able to do as many colors? Probably not as close, but you could try paint too. You could try going in with paint on a brayer and do that same thing and just hit those high points. So it's super important to just play around and have fun and test out those different techniques, because they're all going to give you different effects. So whenever people are like, oh, it wasn't really working for me, it's like, test out how hard you press the stamping foam into your stamp and test out how hard you then stamp it down into your surface, right? All of those different steps of pressure are going to give you different looks every single time. All right, so go in here with our spray bottle. Spray that down again, really following through with the spray, and you're gonna get a beautiful mist on top of that surface. Someone said they love the color names, and I really do appreciate that. We work really hard to make sure that those are just so fun. I want people to smile and just have fun when you are working with your products, and those always just make me smile. So that is so much fun to do. All right, I'm gonna press that down. And there we go. So you'll see now, this gives you a completely different look. And I love the look that this happens to give. It gives you a more subtle background, right? It's not an embossed look, because some people are like, well, I could just go in with white heat embossing and do the same thing. No, you're not getting the same thing, because you're getting this more, it's not like distressed, because you're using tons of color, but it's not giving you a super crisp image, and it's filling in those areas, but it's still giving you that white definition. But it's not as stark as just having like a white floral background over top of the whole thing. No, it's not giving you that. It's giving you this beautiful kind of, I don't even know, like hand-printed look almost. It's super cool, and you get a different effect every single time. This is the one I stamped right before the live to kind of test this out. You guys can see, it just is beautiful, and it gives you a whole new way to use your stamping foam, right? And that's what I think is so important. So when people are like, oh, well, you're using a stamp to stamp in the stamping foam, that's stupid, right? Like, no, it's super cool, and it gives you a different look every time. So whether or not you're trying to use a fine line image and create the detailed look to now a solid background with those details in white, or whether you're trying to go in with a solid image and you're going to go in and get this kind of like hand-printed look, Yeah, someone in the comments says sort of like batik, kind of like fabric. Yeah, it totally is sort of like that kind of print, to get that kind of look. I love it. So let me go in here now with some water again and just spray this down. Use a little bit more water than last time so that it all actually cleans off. And then go in and clean it. Now, of course, try different inks, try different mediums. I know a lot of people talk about all the different mediums that you use. I do say, like, I do test this with my ink pads, so I know that it works with them. And the thing that I like about my ink pads is the surface of them and the ink that comes out. I find that sometimes like a paint like pigment ink might not work as well. Definitely try it, but I find that dye inks probably work the best for this. But yeah, that's kind of just an opinion. Oh, someone just said that all they have is pigment inks. Yeah, you can try pigment inks. Try maybe using a brayer with the pigment inks, because it's such a squishy ink pad, it might sink too far into this. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Someone also just asked a question, which I think is an important one to cover. All right, so I'm gonna go in with a piece of paper towel here to just kind of explain this one really quickly. All right, so when you go into your ink pads, I recommend that you use like the colors in order, right? So you saw me kind of swiping those inks into each other, right? So I would apply down my yellow first and then apply down some Love Struck over top. This yellow is a super yellow ink pad, right? You're gonna stain it if you go into another color. It's not a super huge deal if you stain an ink pad, right? It's not like the end of the world if you do that. But if you went into another ink with a different color, I've gone into greens and blues and different colors with it, it's not ruining your ink pad. Just take your ink pad and wipe it off simply on top of your paper towel, something dry. You don't want to go in with a baby wipe because you're adding then that like sudsy like water and whatever is in that baby wipe. You're almost cleaning out your ink then, which is not something you want to do. You just want to get rid of any ink that's on the surface that might have gotten into your ink pad, and then you're clean and ready to go. The only way you can really contaminate an ink pad like this is just by going in with the wrong re-inker, right? Because then you're applying that ink inside of the pad and you're fully saturating your ink pad with a different color. That's something you don't want to do, right? But when it comes to ink pads like this, if you're just getting another ink on top of the surface, you're good to go. Just wipe it off and you're ready to move on to the next project. I do recommend having re-inkers, especially if you're using your inks a lot and like going in and wiping them off and doing a bunch of techniques. Re-inkers are really great to re-ink your pads. And also I find that if you leave a pad dry for too long, which I've done, I have some in my drawer that I'm like, these aren't really working too well anymore. If you leave a pad dry for too long, the ink pad kind of changes. Whereas if you re-ink it right away, you're just resaturating that pad, right? But if it's been dry for a super long time, then it's like it needs so much ink in there, and you're gonna need to apply so much re-inker and really reconstitute that ink pad back to normal. Whereas if you just kind of re-ink it throughout its lifetime, it'll be a little bit better for it. All right. Now someone talked, and I think this is a great life hack, so I wanted to share this quickly in today's video too. Here's a piece of my stamping foam. We actually just used this one for the wood grain, but we reheated it so it's flat now and ready to use for a different technique. Let's use the Easter Bunny. All right, so this Easter Bunny is a great example of what we can do with reverse stamping, mirror image stamping, some people might say. Because this Easter Bunny is facing right. But what if we want the bunny facing the other way? For whatever reason. Sometimes I make cards where like two deer are facing each other, or yeah, like if you want the Easter Bunny to be holding hands with another bunny and hopping, right? You totally can do that. But this stamping foam, this is where this really comes in handy, right? So I'm gonna go in here, grab my image off the surface, and grab a stamping block. Now when it comes to like adding an image down onto an acrylic block, there's not really any specific way to do it, but I'm gonna give you one tip that I really love. You're gonna notice here, it's not a super big deal with an image like this because there's lots of lines in there, but a stamp is only really gonna apply the pressure wherever the design is. So anywhere where the design is not, it just is gonna have little air bubbles in it. So if it's an image with lots of like extra stamp, that isn't actually design, I like to go in here and just get rid of those air bubbles. I find that that kind of helps give a better image. It's not a super big deal when it comes to lined images, but when there's a lot of open space with that photopolymer material that's not supposed to stamp, sometimes pressing it down is going to give you a much better image. All right, so when it comes to a technique like this, we want a VersaFine Clair. This is a pigment ink, so it's going to stay wet for a lot longer than any other ink is going to do. So I like using this because it really is the only ink that I found that is going to transfer and stay wet long enough to transfer. Hey, Kathy. So great to see you here. All right, so we're going to go in with this ink onto our bunny image. And again, this is from the Hoppy Easter stamp set. It was released last year. I think it's so cute. This bunny makes me smile. Honestly, I drew him when I was still in school, and I remember being in like poetry and prose, and I just got everyone around me, and I'm like, do you think this bunny is cute? Like, what else should we add to him? It was really fun. Like, the teachers even got involved, and they would kind of give some advice on what they thought about the image, which I thought was hilarious. All right, and then before it dries too quickly, we're gonna go in here, and we're going to stand up, give some good pressure all the way around, and really get that image to stamp. Make sure that it's got some good contact points, contact with the paper, and then make sure that it's got some time to kind of sit there and sink in, right? We'll lift that off, and there we have our bunny image. Now, with this bunny, the mouth isn't like super, the mouth is super solid. So like, it's not gonna stamp as crisp as a normal image would, but I'm gonna go in as quick as possible, because this is one trick that I found to really be helpful. I'm gonna go in as quick as possible with some Ranger Clear embossing powder. And the VersaFine, like I said, stays wet long enough. It's a pigment ink, so it stays wet long enough to be able to throw over any type of embossing powder. So you guys know me, if you've seen a lot of my videos, I heat emboss everything. Like everything that I can with this ink, I heat emboss all the time because I just love the crisp image that it gives to a black image. All right, so I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna heat emboss this really quickly. All right, so there we have our image then. You can see that this embossing powder kind of intensifies that image. So even if we didn't have the best stamping, right, because it's gonna be a little bit blurry, we're using the stamping foam to like transfer an image. So if you can see, it's not the crispest image in the world, but I think that embossing powder, throwing that over top is going to really amplify the image, and it's gonna make it look just as dark black and just as crisp as any other image, right? So that's gonna kind of disguise any like furry lines or anything like that. So that tip is incredibly helpful. Now when it comes to cleaning this off, again, try some sort of stamp cleaner. I kind of ran out of my stamp cleaner, but if you go in and rub it with water as fast as possible, again, it's a pigment ink, so it's not gonna dry super fast. You can get that off. So that's a tip. Just go in super quick and wipe that off, and I find that has been super helpful. But of course, if you need to, go in with a stamp cleaner and get that off if you waited a little bit too long. So let me show you guys. I've loved this VersaFine ink for stamping, and let me just show you quick. Just gonna stamp him next to him. And you can see, there's no denying that that image is darker and more crisp. So like, there is a reason why we make stamps like this, right? You can't just have any sort of image with stamping foam. It's gonna make it a little bit blurrier. But if you need this in a pinch, like I know this Christmas, I made a card with two deer that were facing each other. And I thought it was so cute because when I was designing the stamp set, I didn't give a reverse image. And so in those pinches, this technique works perfectly. I love it to create that effect. Now, one thing I do want to say too is this was done after I've heated up the stamping foam at least once. It's a great tip because when you heat up that stamping foam, it's going to kind of like, I don't know, it creates a different feel to the stamping foam. It's not as like squishy and porous as it started out with. It almost becomes like a resistant or like a little bit shiny on top. And that I think is better to create that reverse image, to get that like almost stamp pad effect using that. Once you've used it once, it should be great to go once you've kind of heated it like that. And then you should have the perfect kind of area to do that reverse stamping with. All right. So now that we've kind of covered some stamping foam techniques, I know that that literally took so long, but we're here for a while. So we'll keep going, and we're going to jump into some lunar paste techniques now. I think lunar paste is such a fun medium, and I've honestly been learning a lot more about it as I've been using it and as it's been out on the market. I just love it to create these beautiful shiny effects. And so of course, if you guys haven't seen lunar paste before, lunar paste is this beautiful paste medium that almost looks like foil when you're done with it. I love it. And my favorite part about it is it's super shiny, but none of it comes off on the customer's hand afterwards. I love shiny products and I'm all about them. But when we were testing lunar paste, we tested like waxes and different mediums that you couldn't really set into place, and different powders and things like that. And I was like, well, I want this medium that's almost like a paint, but like I literally asked for a mix of everything. And the thing I love about Ranger is our chemist, Steve, shout out to Steve, he is absolutely amazing at taking my weird ideas and being like, well, Simon, you really can't be either one. And I was like, well, can we test both? He is great at just like going along with our different crazy ideas and trying to make them work. And lunar paste was one of those things that he created. And after I talked about it for so long, and he was like, test this out, like try this one and let me know. I'm sure we're gonna have to do some revisions, but I loved this stuff from the very beginning. And we've been adding colors now as we go, but I want to walk you guys through some of my favorite techniques using this lunar paste. Hey, Vicky Booten, you're awesome. All right, so lunar paste is so fun. We've been releasing more and more colors as we go, and you guys will definitely be seeing more colors in the very near future as well. I've been testing quite a few of them. So right now I believe, how many do we have? 9? 9. I had to count there. All right, so this is kind of my rainbow so far. And one thing that I really love about the lunar paste now that more colors have been coming out of these pastes is you get more of these oddball colors that I really love, right? I love these weird colors because it makes them not as primary, right? Because I love my first original colors. I think it was like these. But you can see that you can't create a bunch of different blends with them. And so when it came to lunar paste, when these weird colors started coming out, it became even more versatile to create with for me. And I think it'll be super exciting for you guys to see as well. Now, there have been lots of people that have been commenting, well, like, Simon, I can totally mix these by myself and I can create whatever colors. And if you just release a white paste, like, we can mix them. Here's the thing. At Ranger, they always tell us, like, do what's going to work for you, because if I love to use it, there are going to be some of you guys out there that love to use it too. And for me, they came to me with the idea. They were like, well, what if we create a white one? And there's a couple things about doing that, right? With the white one, you're going to have white shine. So when I tilt these, you're going to see these, when they're not tilted, they're a color, right? You can see that color very vividly on that black. But when they are tilted, you're getting the shine of that color. And that's because these are made using powders, right? They're made using each individual pigment powder. And that's where it became tricky. It was like, Steve came to me, he was like, well, how am I going to create like prom queen? Because some of them I rejected. I was like, oh, that doesn't quite match. And he was like, well, how am I going to create that? And so he does such a great job of mixing these so perfectly that they match the colors pretty much exactly. Like we get as close as possible. And so for me, I've just noticed I'm not the type to pull out white paste and pull out a bunch of it and then like mix exactly the amount that I want. And then, well, what if I have leftovers, right? Because that's going to just dry. And then what if in the middle of a project, I run out of pastes and I'm not someone who's going to then mix the exact same color of that. And then some of you guys are, and I know in the future, we're probably going to have a white paste, but the problem with the white paste is when you tilt it, it's going to have just that white shine. You're not going to be able to see that color. So it's one thing that I love about these, that we're releasing these all in different colors, is because I'm that crafter that wants these different colors to create different blends. Right? I'm not sure how far we're going to go with how many colors we're going to have, but I think right now, too, we've got a great rainbow assortment that you can choose from to create really beautiful backgrounds. And I see lots of people in the comments being like, yeah, it's worth buying them. Like, I do it, and I've gotten a bunch of use out of them, because you really do. But let's go in and let me now walk you guys through the different techniques you can do with them. And yes, I see lots of color suggestions. We are working on some more basics as well when it comes to colors. So don't worry about that. Thank you for all of your amazing requests. We have been working on all different types of the Lunar Paste to give you neutrals too, and there's a lot to that coming too. But I started out with these colors because it really is my brand to have this like super bright and vibrant red, right? Like that's what I wanted. It wasn't so much for me to get like the basic like neutrals out right away, right? So for me, this is what worked, and that's why I love them. All right, so let me talk about applying these down to a background. For the longest time, I have been trying to apply these over top of like embossing powder, and they would always stick because it's that, it's a medium that's going to stick over top of it because it's got that powder in it, right? These are solid colors. They're not like inks where you can layer through, right? They work on black cardstock. So this is a solid color, and so I've struggled so much with being able to apply these over top of any embossed background because it just sticks. All right, it just sticks down, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It always has stuck. And I tried, you guys saw, I tried using blender brushes. You have to be careful with these because if you don't clean them out right away, you get a crunchy brush. That's not great. But if you bring these to the sink right away and clean them out with water, it's a great way to apply these. I also love using them with the Ranger foams. But again, you've got to clean this out until you see no more color, because these have been used before, but you have to clean them out with water before you see no color. Otherwise, you're going to get them hard and dry. All right, so I just want to go over the basics. I know sometimes, hopefully it doesn't seem like I'm just rambling here, but I think this type of product information is so important to know why I did something and why something is working and what I really love to use to apply these types of mediums. So I'm going to go in with a little bit on my glass mat. I love using like a glass mat or a craft sheet to work with these pastes. All right, and I'm going to go in with my finger. This is literally your magic weapon, your tool to apply this, because it's not going to dry on your finger. Your finger's not going to harden when it dries, right? And you're not worrying about like cleaning off different tools in between different colors and everything like that. This has just been so simple for me, and I'll also show you why it's so important to go over top with your finger over top of a background. So I've already heat embossed on top of this. This is clear heat embossing powder, and I used the Egg Hunt background stamp. I told you guys this was a really solid one. So this is the challenge, right? Because you have such a solid area of this, you're gonna rub that over top and be like, well, Simon, that doesn't look great because you're just throwing that paste over top, right? So you're getting that background. You can see those eggs slightly, but you're covering up your embossing powder. And that's totally fine. Like some people might love that look, but let me show you guys exactly what I learned today. Literally today I was playing around with this and I was just testing it out and I was like, there needs to be a way. And I started just going with my finger and applying it. And honestly, guys, this is my new favorite method. All right, so you've applied this down onto the surface, and I've got to say, the paste to dry time it's immediate. It's so fast, especially when you apply it super thin like this. When you apply it a little bit thicker, you're gonna have to wait a little bit longer. But when you apply it super thin like this, the dry time is almost immediate. All right, and then once it's dry, once it's started to dry on the surface there, you don't want it to be fully dry. You just want it to be starting to dry. All right, and then you grab your finger here, and you just go in and wipe that off. And like I said, it's partially dry already. It's not fully dry at this moment. It's partially dry, and I'm literally like peeling off that film. The friction from your finger is what does it, right? So if you go in with a sponge and you try this, it's not gonna work. You're not gonna be able to clean off that embossing powder. Trust me, I have tried many times. The thing about this, that you're rubbing that paste off. You're rubbing that little film off the top once it's kind of dried, and you're then getting, and it's kind of a horrible noise sometimes, but you're getting that beautiful effect then. And so just go in, over top of all of them. I know some of you guys are probably like, oh, that's literally nails on a chalkboard. But it creates such a beautiful effect, right? And I did this with a couple different backgrounds before we started. I did it with Egg Hunt on white cardstock. So you can see that shine is just tremendous. It's beautiful, and especially in real life. Sometimes the film lighting kind of messes with it a little bit, but just beautiful. And then here I went in with Lovely Lilies, and I did this on craft cardstock. It gives a totally different look on every cardstock you apply it to, but on every single one, it doesn't lose its color or shine because it's made with those powders, right? Those powders are so important because even on this cardstock, it's craft. It's craft, I'm not lying to you. Even on this cardstock, it's still shiny and beautiful, which is so amazing. Someone in the comments said, squeak the squeak. It literally is. It's like embrace the fact that your finger is making this horrible noise, but you're getting a beautiful background out of it. Someone in the comments just said, I hope it washes off your fingers easily. All right, so here's the thing. You're gonna go in with your spray bottle, and if you're really concerned about this, go in with your finger and just wipe it off, right? Some of it's gonna dry on. If you don't want it to dry on your finger, I don't really know what to tell you, but like, you can get it pretty clean afterwards if you just wipe it with water in a cloth. All right, and I was doing this before. My hands were full of paint and ink and things like that, and they're pretty clean. I've also got to say, like, if you go in and you take a shower, this is the weirdest information ever, but if you shower and you wash your hair, a lot of the chemicals in your shampoos and things like that and the texture of your hair is going to get rid of any of that from your hands as well. So if you've got like stains, I know I used to use like alcohol inks and all of that stuff where it really stains your hand. Like these don't stain. And washing your hair will be really helpful if you've got like something super important to go to. But I used to walk into school with like inked up fingers every day. My fingers were like disgustingly like inky every single day because I was using mediums that just did not come off. I promise you guys, this is easier to remove from your fingers, but it still is. It still is a paint. So if you get it while it's super dry, it's a little bit more difficult to remove, but it's not impossible by any means. It is a water-based medium, so it does react with that water and kind of come off. But with the same thing in mind, it's not going to react to water once it's dry. So like, if it's on your cardstock, don't expect this to really start moving with water or doing any water techniques. That's not what it's meant for, really. But it is a water-based medium. It's not super reactive, but it will break down with water if you're trying to clean it. All right, and then again, once we're going in here, right, it started to dry already. Isn't that just crazy that it's already drying? Like I'm telling you guys, I am the most impatient crafter ever. That's probably the reason, even though I won't admit it, I'm the laziest crafter ever. And that's the reason why I like all these colors of pastes too. It's like because I can go in here so quickly, I'm not one to sit there for 20 minutes and mix my own colors, right? I want them mixed and matching my projects. But look how simple that was. And I'm going in here now, touching that cardstock, and like nothing is coming off on my hand. Is that not crazy? Both of these are dry already. So that's the coolest part about applying it down with just your finger. You're applying such a thin layer into the cardstock, and it's gonna just peel right off the surface of those eggs because it's still that resisted surface. It's plastic. Embossing powder is just melted plastic, so it's not gonna dry on top of that. And because it's sinking into the cardstock so quickly and you're applying such a thin layer with the paste, it really is such a great medium. So can you use a dauber instead of your finger? You totally can, but you can't with this embossing powder technique. You could use, so here's what you could do. You could use a dauber to apply the color. Just after you're done with the dauber, you've got to make sure you clean that out before it starts drying because it's going to harden in your dauber. So unless if you clean it out with water, it's going to harden. But you could totally use a dauber for this first part of the technique. All right. I'm gonna apply this down. So use a dauber maybe to apply this down if you really don't want to touch it with your fingers. And then once this has kind of started to dry a little bit, you can kind of feel it on your surface. Once it starts getting a little bit tacky, then go in with your finger and start buffing it off. Because it's not, I mean, it's gonna give your finger a little bit of color even when you're doing that. But I don't know what to tell you. It's not a super staining medium, is really it. Has anybody used this on their fingers? But yeah, you could totally go in with your fingers and rub this off if you don't want to dip your finger into that paint. How cool is that, guys? It's crazy. And I didn't do it on black cardstock earlier, but I just love the shine that the black cardstock gives, to be honest. It's just so beautiful. I love it. I love it. All right, and then I'm gonna use one of my newest colors. I love these different colors. And then we're gonna move on to a different way to do this. All right, this has got to be one of my favorite colors now. I love it. I'm gonna go in here, a little bit of Minty Fresh. Minty Fresh is such a cool color. All right, we're going in here. Someone said they love finger painting with Lunar Paste, and Tracy says she uses it exclusively with her fingers, honestly. And I tried it before using my fingers, but I wasn't like, I wasn't sold. I was like, yeah, I love doing this, but is everyone going to love it? But then once I found that like this technique really only works with the friction of your fingers, it was an immediate for me, like, of course, that's how I'm going to use it. Your fingers are really a great tool to apply a lot of different mediums like this. All right, and so you're going to just go in and clean this off the surface. And one thing that you can see that I'm doing, and I've been a little bit cautious of this, is sometimes companies do like warn you about dipping your finger into their medium because, you know, if your finger's not super clean, so make sure you wash your hands for sure. Sometimes people will like warn you of like mold growing inside of the jar because of you dipping your finger in. So I do pull it off to the side and do this for the demo reason, for all of you guys. But if you're risky and you just are like me, literally when I'm not doing a demo, I will dip my finger right into the jar or even right into just the lid here. You honestly get enough just by dipping your finger into there. But if you are worried about mold, which I don't think, I've never had them grow mold, like be growing in my jars. I don't know. I've only had that happen with some products, but I don't think that there's that kind of reaction with these types of chemicals. But if you are worried about that, pull your paste out beforehand. All right, and then last but not least, we'll do the last color just because we're still here. No, you know what? No, yeah, we'll use this. We'll use a little bit of Clear Skies. All right. Last but not least. All right. Yeah, and see, look, my finger is not super messy. Out of all mediums, like these surprisingly don't stain super often. And one thing I do have to say is I'm a person who doesn't love mediums that are super messy. I'm kind of afraid of acrylic paint and different things like that. So I never thought that I would love a paste. But for some reason, this is super easy to clean up off of a lot of different things. If it gets dried on your craft sheet, scrape it off. Using water, again, will really kind of reactivate it. So once all of this stuff dries on your craft sheet, a little bit of water will kind of react it a little bit. Not reactivate it, but just like help lift it off of a porous, or sorry, non-porous surface like that. And if you find it's not cleaning off as much or you're just moving paint around, move to your next finger. It's usually because you've got too much paste on the previous finger to lift it off, really. And once you get that, oh my gosh, do you guys see that? And it totally changes the colors. I used the same colors on here. You can see that blue down there is different. It just, the black tone in the cardstock is going to give you a whole different look. But such beautiful and stunning backgrounds. And once these both are completely dry, like you can see, that shine is just insane. And that's why I love having each different color with these pearl powders, because you can see that specific shine of that color is coming from that pearl. It's not coming from a dye or a pigment, because if you dyed this with a reinker, with a reinker like mine, it's a clear ink, it's translucent. So it's not going to show as much as this does, right? This is showing because it's that pearl powder and because it's almost like a pigment. So that's really the difference, and I wanted you to be able to use whatever color cardstock you want. Here I used, like I said, craft, and you get a really cool look too. So try this out. Try it with your finger and buff it off with your finger. You're gonna get a super cool effect with that sort of technique. With just the buffing of your hand, you get such an amazing look. All right, and really quickly, once you're done with this, then again, it cleans off pretty easily. Literally, actually, look at this. It like almost is like that glue when you're a kid, like it just peels off. It started to do that on my hand. But I'm just gonna go in with a little bit of water. Spray down some water here, and then really easily just go in and wipe it off. I'm not gonna waste your time to just sit here and clean my fingers for a long time, but again, washing your hands, you can see that those are coming off in little chunkity bits. Yeah. All right, so just get enough off for the demo and move on, but wash your hands and you'll get a really great look. No, that's not gold embossing powder. That's actually, this, someone said, is this gold embossing powder on here? No, it is clear embossing powder. And you're just seeing kind of a brown goldy effect because it's the craft that's beneath it. All right. And then for these, again, water will kind of break this down, but you can kind of wait till it gets dry too. And a razor blade cleans this off really well of a glass surface. But again, you can see once the water is kind of sitting on this for a little while, it almost reactivates it a little bit. Like it's weird because it's completely dry, but it like gets underneath it and lifts it off of that surface. But I want to be clear, your pastes are not going to reactivate on your cards. Once they're dry, they dry. But if it's a non-porous glass surface like this, it's easier to clean off with water, just using that because it's a surface that's meant to clean. All right, so next let's talk quickly about, well, should we use the same technique? Let's go in first using the same technique. So I wanted to bring this in onto a concept that's like, how do you color an image in like this, right? Because this is all fun and games, all cool and dandy, I love it. But I was like, well, I want to use this. What if I want a shiny embellishment? What if I want my focal point to be the shiny part because I want it to stand out and I want my background to just be a normal background? That was where this really struck me. So I'm using one of my new stamp sets. This is called Pretty Peonies. The reason why I chose this one is because it's got a nice thin line images in there in that set. I've showed you with the eggs that you can do like really thick images, and that's where like it was really important to show that because I think you can see on the eggs like me peeling that off a lot easier with the friction there. But now I'm going to show you guys using thin line images. So I used one of these flowers in here. It's got nice fine line details and I love this stamp set. I think this would be a great focal point for a card. But this is super easy to do as well. So I'm going to go in here. Going to go in using just my paste. You know what? Why did I clean that off? Why did I move it? All right. And that's upside down. Laugh at me in the comments, please. All right, so we're gonna go in here now with my paste. And again, just dip your finger. I literally just do it right out of the lid all the time. And I'm gonna go in on the surface. Now you only need a tiny little bit of this paste because a little bit goes a long way. And you can see on that white cardstock, this is super easy to do, to see what you're doing, and that color is intense. That's what I love about these. He did such a great job with that pink. Prom Queen is one of my favorite colors because it just gives such a beautiful look. All right, and I'm coloring the whole thing with a little bit of Prom Queen first because like I said, these are pigmented. So Prom Queen is going to color this all in, but I can go in after Prom Queen and layer up certain colors. So I'm going in now, and it's not as big of a thing, right? When I lift this off, you can see that the black lines are getting darker, but it's not as noticeable. You can definitely see that we're revealing them a little bit. Do you see that? You didn't lose the black lines in there. You're revealing them. And these black lines, again, you guys heard me before, but I stamp everything in that VersaFine ink, and then I clear heat emboss it. The clear heat embossing is a main part to this. I should have probably told that to you beforehand, but clear heat embossing is so important when it comes to this technique because you're peeling it off, but it's only coming off because the clear heat embossing is there. Because it's a non-porous surface, it's not sinking it in, it's just sitting on top. So once it's dried on top of there, you're able to move it off. So that's why the clear heat embossing is important. I should have probably mentioned that I clear heat embossed these images as well. This is, yeah, it's the same stamp set from Staycation. It is called Pretty Peonies. I love this stamp set. All right, and then we'll go in with a little bit of Slippery When Wet. And I'm just going to go in here with a little bit of this. And like I said, these pastes, they layer because they all are pigmented, right? They're all that powder. They all layer up beautifully. I'm just able to go in here. I'm starting off in this kind of area with the stamen in the center, and I'm just going to kind of blend this out. Just using my dry finger here, smoosh it down, and you're able to get that effect kind of blended together there a little bit. All right, and then I'll go down and move on to some areas down here and just add different color in kind of wherever I want to. You'll see, like, once it sinks into that cardstock, though, there's no move in it. So if you want to blend a little bit more, sometimes going in with a little bit more of that same color is going to give you the nice blended look. All right, then once you're done, buff, nails on that chalkboard sound, but you're going to get that beautiful image, and it's still going to be black then. All right. And then we'll go in with the leaves using a little bit of Minty Fresh. Super simple. When it comes to like images that are by themselves, like just these leaves, they are so easy because there's no avoiding anything. And I fussy cut things out. Of course, if you guys have die cuts for stamp sets too, just die cut around it. But I like to go outside of the lines too because you're not like trying to stay inside. Like, it's a paste, right? It's not a marker. It's not something that you're going to be able to really keep inside of the lines. So I just go outside of the lines and then I cut around it, leaving a little bit of a border. And because that color's outside of the lines too, it's not even really noticeable because you're leaving that little border there. All right. A little Minty Fresh on the leaves. I love this. All right, so once I've done that, go in, and it's literally as simple as, like you guys were comparing it earlier, it's literally like peeling glue off of your finger. I tried using an eraser. I tried all different things to get it off of the surface, and really the friction from your finger is one of the only things that's gonna do it for you. All right, and last but not least, we'll go in with a little bit of Psych. Go into here, and literally the littlest goes the long way. That's why I like these 2-ounce jars. They are so much fun because they last me forever, and I'm not afraid about using up my paste. Like, if I had just one jar of white, I'd be like, I'm running out. I'm not gonna use it. I'm gonna just stare at it. But here, they're at a great price point, and you get a lot in each jar, which was so important to me. Y'all, I fought to get you guys these 2 ounces. It was going to be less. So I'd like some thank yous in the comments. All right. And I'm going to rub it off. And you want to start rubbing it off, again, with your dry finger, and once it started to dry just a little bit. All right. I see lots of you guys in the comments saying that you're going to try these out. You love them, and thank you. It means so much to me to hear that you guys are loving a product. If I want to kind of blend things more, I can go back in with the color. Like here, I'm going back in with the pink color, and I just wanted to soften out those edges. Sometimes, like, you literally want almost like enough, or almost so little that you can't even tell that it's on your finger. And sometimes dabbing and then rubbing will give you the effect that you want. All right, look at that. That blended a little bit better, at least to me. All right, look at that. And you can just see the shine is already coming through, and it is beautiful. I love it. All right, so let's move this out of the way now. And let me just show you guys quickly. I'm gonna just spray into my rag. I find that honestly cleaning your fingers is better on like a rag than a paper towel because this is textured, so you're able to get more of that color off. All right, you see? It's coming off. You could also use like hand sanitizer, would probably help to get it off of your surface. All right. See, look at that. They're already a lot cleaner than they were. I'm telling you guys, it's not hard to clean off your fingers. All right, so literally, once this is done, it's dry. It is. And so all you need to do is go in with your fingers. And I just want to cut one of these out just because I know you guys in the comments are probably like, this is a hot mess. This doesn't look good, because I'm saying the same thing. Because if I looked at that while it was just on that piece of paper, I'd be like, yeah, Simon, I don't really know where you're going with that. But I'm telling you guys, if you fussy cut it with a little bit of a border, and I'm going to just leave a little bit of a border here. Like I said, I went outside of the lines on purpose because I wanted to show you this is how it works. This is how I fussy cut these things out. And for the longest time, I was like, oh, maybe you can water these down and go in with a water brush. But really, this finger method has been my favorite. Even though it's not the most precise and you can't stay inside of the lines, really, fussy cutting is not too big of a task. And it really does clean up the whole vibe of the image. So for fussy cutting, I just go in with my Fiskars Spring Assist scissors. These are also listed down in the description box below. There's links to pretty much every product that I'm talking about today. And these Spring Assist scissors are some of my absolute favorites. I love that they spring back out at you like this so your hands don't get tired when you're fussy cutting. It's one of my favorite things, and they really help me to get into a lot of the littler details. I know some people like different types of scissors. These have been my favorite. They might take a little bit of getting used to them kind of springing back out at you, but honestly, it saves me a lot of hand pains because they do most of the work of like coming back out for you. You're not having to open and close the scissors. There are 9 lunar pastes out right now. More to come very soon, but right now there are 9 colors. All right, so there it is, all fussy cut out. I think that is so important to show. I love that beautiful shine, but I think it's so important to show that this is how it looks when you bring in those lunar pastes and you cut it out. Right? It's not that hot mess that I showed on the cardstock. It starts like that, but it really just becomes so gorgeous once it's completely cut out and finished. And this is totally an embellishment, a beautiful focal point that you can use. I think it is absolutely stunning. It's one of my favorite things to do with the lunar paste. And now that I know that that friction really pulls it off of the focal point, it creates such a beautiful card. All right, so let's see. I want to share one more thing. So one last thing that I think is really important is showing how to create little embellishments like this. We've talked a lot about the different lunar pastes, and this lunar paste, to create an embellishment like this, is so much fun. I love using the lunar paste to create your own types of cardstock, to create your own backgrounds like I've showed today, but also to create your own mirrored paper. I don't have a lot of glitter paper around. I don't have a lot of mirrored cardstock around because the lunar paste has really replaced a lot of that for me. And it's not too in your face. I know some of the mirrored cardstocks on the market, I'm like, ooh, that is blinding. It takes over my project and I can't even see what's underneath it because it's so bright. Literally my thought process, right? But with these, it's got just enough shine to it that it is beautiful. But it doesn't overpower anything, right? Because it's got that beautiful color along with it. So I'm going to show you guys how to create something that looks a little bit like this. And again, it starts out looking hideous. I'm going to admit to you guys right now, it does not look good at the beginning, but does anything, right? It comes together at the end. All right, so we're going to go in with a little bit of lunar paste. Again, using my finger, I'm just going to go onto the surface and I'm just going to blend over top. I'm going to do a little bit of a different color blend than I did on that one. That one I think I used a little bit of Slippery and Wet and then a little bit of Prom Queen, which is that pink color. All right, and you can layer up your lunar paste too. If I go in here and I'm like, all right, I like that. It's pretty, honestly, it's pretty bold how it is, but I can go in with a heat tool too and heat set that pretty quickly. Is that already dry? That's already dry. Honestly, guys, is that not crazy? And it becomes more shiny when it's dry. Like, that is straight up gold on my cardstock. It's insane. All right, but then if I want to, I can layer it up more and create even more bold and brilliant shine and color to it. You can totally use a blending tool. I saw a couple of people asking, are you going to do more finger painting? Yes, I am going to use more of my fingers, but you can totally go in with a blending tool. This isn't one of those techniques that needs that friction, really. It just is a little bit difficult to blend. With a blending tool, so I do love using my finger for just this type of thing. I don't know why, it just works. All right, let's next use, let's do a little bit of prom queen, I'm thinking. No, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of psych. I want to show you guys this because some people were like, oh, well, psych looks a little bit close. Not at all. Psych it's a goldy kind of color. It's got a lot of yellow to it, so it's kind of why it looks a little bit similar to Slippery When Wet, but it totally is a different looking green. It's a green, but the beautiful part about Psych, like I said, it's one of those misfit colors. It doesn't really know what it is. And those colors are my favorites because you can really mix them in with blues. You can blend them together with, like this one. This one's got a little bit of yellow in it too, so you can blend it with that, or you can blend it with the greens. It really makes it so versatile to use with whatever colors you want. All right, and like I said, you can blend it with the greens, so I'm going to go in with a little bit of Minty Fresh, which is a blue-green color. And going in, and just going to go on top of my surface. And like I said, I mean, this is where your finger would come in handy with this, because I find at that line in between there, blending with your finger is really the only way you're going to be able to see, like, okay, I need to keep moving it that way. I need to, you know, blend it a little bit more in order to get that certain look. There's a little chunk there from it drying. All right, and just go in and finish that off. That's about enough. Honestly, I probably blended a little bit too much, but I was having some fun there. Now, there have been some questions as well. Yes, someone said a finger is a tool that you can't lose. I would agree. It's amazing how much you can do with your finger with these different mediums to create with. Now, of course, I'm going to use my heat tool again. Some people don't recommend using a heat tool. With this paste, if you apply it thin like this, it's not going to bubble up, so a heat tool is totally fine. If you apply it a little bit thicker, you might see it start bubbling a little bit, but only if you hold it in place for too long. If you keep moving the heat tool, it's not going to be too much of a harm to it. All right. Cool. So I didn't even need to heat it for that long. It was literally probably almost dry already, but that's awesome. I love the amount of shine that it gives. And I love showing it after it dries because, like, that, my friends, that's insane. Oh my gosh, I love it. All right, so I'm going to go in now with a die cut. I love these kind of word die cuts where they've got like a shadow in them. I love it because it gives me more room to die cut this out and get those solid colors. I think I'm going to put it on an angle like this to go across these sort of colors like that. All right, should we do it? Should we do some live awkward die cutting? All right, guys. We're doing it. I know a lot of people were asking for this. I haven't done a lot of live videos lately, but a lot of people were like, I missed your awkward die cutting. So this is for all of you. It's especially awkward when it's live because I can't even cut it halfway. All right. Oh, that is beautiful. You guys don't even get to see it yet. All right. So we'll flip it back down to the downward facing camera and you guys can see, if that is not stunning, I don't know what is. It catches your eye in a beautiful way. You can create multicolored kind of blended backgrounds like that. So it totally is completely different than a sort of foil background. I love it. It's beautiful. So I do love that. So this is one thing I wanted to share. Like, I'm not a huge fan of keeping on hand a million different colors of that kind of cardstock. And so that is where this really does come in handy to create this sort of look. All right, and then all you need to do is go in. We can go in and die cut this guy out too. Should we do a little more awkward die cutting? All right, we'll die cut this out of a piece of white. Once again. Someone said cool chair. Thank you. I like it too. Alrighty. I love my Spellbinders machine. It does a great job at die cutting through cardstock as well. It's been so awesome. And I honestly like manual machines. Some other machines I've had some experiences with, they've scared me. Sometimes those like machine ones, they're terrifying. I've had one like, yeah, we won't even get into that. But I've had one like have a plate fly at me and like crack. Not a fun time. So no, I like my Spellbinders machine. All right, so I'm gonna go in with a little bit of liquid adhesive and just go in and add just the tiniest bit of adhesive at little points here and there. This feels like not a thing I should be doing live. Gluing things is not my forte, guys. It really isn't. But I wanted to share this with you, and I wanted to share kind of how it looks in the end when you add a little die cut on top. I think that is super important for you guys to see the finished result so you can get the full vision there. So you just add that down, lay it down there. But of course, if you have something big and bold and chunky, like a die cut, like Kathy Zilski's dies, those large chunky dies, honestly would be so beautiful. And I need to get my hands on some of those because I think those would be just stunning with this sort of thing. Of course, this is beautiful. It's a little bit more subtle to have that white over top, but like anything large, chunky is going to give you that really cool effect. So try playing with this. I think this is a good hack because you're getting that multicolored look, which that doesn't happen, right? You don't usually get foiled cardstocks in like half orange, half yellow, or like yellow, green, and blue, right? That's the cool part about this. I love the fact that you can have less on hand, right? Because this is just white cardstock that I've changed the color of with a little bit of the Lunar Paste, but also you can create your own custom looks. And that to me is super important. That's really what my product line is all about. It's been like, okay, well, I want you to get a little bit more use out of your background stamps. Let's create peel apart background stamps. I want you to get more use out of your stamps. Let's create stamping foam. And same thing with this Lunar Paste. It's been just, I want you to be able to alter your cardstock. I want you to be able to go in and add your shine down, and it's all done with one product, which I think is so cool. So I hope you guys like these different ideas that I gave today. I think that these die cuts are so much fun that we can finish off a card with. I think the stamping foam techniques too are really eye-opening, hopefully, for lots of you. You can really change a really detailed background into a more solid look. And same thing with a more solid stamp, you can create a beautiful kind of batik looking background with it. And then of course, going in with your Lunar Paste is an absolute must. I love these different types of cards that we created and different embellishments like I shared to create with as well. I think that is just so much fun, and we covered a lot in today's video, so I hope you guys really enjoyed it.